One of the threads in our Discord is a mailbag for people to ask questions that I answer here on the morning show. So, Mike, I've been noticing a lot of people after Kendrick's win in the beef and the Grammys are saying, now rap can get back to the art. Wouldn't that be nice? But last I checked, there are plenty of other rappers keeping the art form alive outside of the mainstream and what is on the radio. Why do you think so many generalize when it comes to hip hop, especially when there are always artists abound that are always doing something cool? And also, why do you think so many people never try to research before they speak about the state of an entire genre they barely pay attention to? So there's a lot there. There is a lot there. So I'll start at the end. Why do people never try to research before they speak about the state of an entire genre they barely pay attention to? Because I think that, hip hop is 50. I think we, celebrated 50 years of hip hop last year. It's still relatively a young genre, and it's a genre specifically associated with like the black urban quote unquote underclass, like working class. And because of that, in mainstream culture, it's still thought of in a diminutive and a pejorative kind of way. It's still dismissed. It's still not seen as like high art. Even the successful rappers are mostly kind of thought of as like criminals who made it out from underneath. And now like the people in suits have to sit next to them and make deals with them, but they don't really consider these people artistic geniuses or having supplied the world with valuable art and craft. Like that's just not how a lot of people see hip hop. And when you see a genre in such belittled terms, it's very easy to just look at what's happening on the most obvious level of it and speak about it as if that is all there is. Like it's very easy to do that if you don't truly respect the genre to begin with. It's very easy to just look at what's going on the surface and say, okay, well, this is all there is. Some of y'all might remember, this is a lot of this took place before many of y'all might have ever heard of me, but I believe it was 2012. I did the rap study with the National Institutes of Health. I rapped in an MRI machine for hours. Like it literally might have been 2 or 3 hours where I had to freestyle in this MRI machine. And we were helping to design a study where ultimately there were like 8 rappers who we had, and I say we because I was a co-author on the study. We designed a study where rappers would freestyle, rappers would do written verses, rappers would do collectively memorized verses. So having the same verse memorized by all of the participants in order to study the differences in brain activity while somebody is rapping in this MRI machine. This is my brain. This is my brain from the MRI machine. This is some of the results that we got scanning my particular brain. This is November 15th, 2012, right? So this is the Los Angeles rappers Michael Eagle, Daniel Rizek Bear, and this is the study we did. So the internet is kind of different than when we did this. And in a lot of ways it's worse. But one of the ways that was really stark in contrast to now then, and the reason I even brought this up is because we were all so excited. Me, Daniel, all of these scientists at the National Institutes of Health were all so excited about having gotten the funding to do this research, to design this study and have all these rappers. And then it got published by Nature magazine. It was like a really huge deal, right? But at the time, one of the main mechanisms of the internet was not only would you get things published, you'd have all these comment sections. This study was picked up by NPR, NBC News, all of these big giant outlets that published on the website that week about this study. And like 95% of the comments were people saying, why are you guys even wasting your money on this? Rappers don't have brains. Like literally, they're like human beings. This is before AI. This is before the mass of social media robots that you could be unknowingly interacting with on social media today. These were real human beings who over and over again were saying things to that effect. Like, there's nothing in there. They're rappers. There's nothing in their brains. Like, that was, I mean, the majority of the reaction from commenters. And it was fucking stunning. But it underscores what I'm talking about. Like, when you think that a genre has nothing to offer creatively, it's so easy to dismiss it. And as high as we've seen rappers go, as brilliant as the artists are in this genre, when you are paying attention, outside of rap, like outside of the genre, we're still contending with this idea that what we make is worthless. Like, that is the prevailing sentiment in America, that what we do is worthless. You can even look at some of the responses to Kendrick's halftime show and how so many people are just like, I can't understand what he's saying. So then they completely dismiss it because it's too many words, because it's not singing them something that they can just easily understand. They believe it to be of no worth. But that's the environment that we're in when it comes to how people think about rap music. So within that, it's just very easy for people to make these wild assumptions about what is or is not happening in the genre. Now rap can get back to the art, but there's plenty of rappers keeping the art form alive. I wish that it was true that the rise and sort of cultural domination and ubiquity of Kendrick would create an environment where art would be valued in rap. Or, I mean, because I don't even know if art was ever truly valued in rap. But one thing that was definitely good about the rap industry of the past was that the record companies, right? So the Universal Music Group, like, because right now the industry is dominated by the distributors, Universal, Warner, Sony. I don't even know if there is another one. Distributors and record labels are less incentivized than ever to have any sort of variation in what they push, especially in rap. It used to be, when there was a lot more money in the music economy from CDs, specifically from people spending $10 a unit, there was a lot more money coming in. So it made more sense for record labels to have a variety of products that they were trying to push. Now that with the streaming economy, there's so much less money coming in, there's a lot less incentive to offer a variety of products. It makes a lot more sense to these giant corporations, bottom line, to not really take too many chances, right? Given that Kendrick, by his nature, is a unique artist, it's going to be hard for these big distributors to find voices inspired by, influenced by, or anything like Kendrick for them to invest in. It's going to be difficult for them to do. And my sense is they're not going to try very hard to find other people who could have this sort of impact culturally. I don't think they're going to put in the effort to do that. I just don't believe it to be the case. That is definitely my cynicism speaking. And because of that, I feel like what we're going to end up experiencing is more of the same rather than a new day. And that's what sort of really disappointed me about that new Drake song, the one Give Me a Hug, cuz there's a philosophy in that song. And the philosophy is, y'all aren't going to get rid of me, because at the end of the day, I'm going to keep the party going. And I'm talking about the philosophy of the song. This is not my philosophy, but this is the philosophy of the song. Is that I'm going to keep the party going. And this culture, the consumers of this culture, are always going to want the party. What he was saying about, they're going to have girls at 29 29's a place. 29 stripping with a dictionary. He's saying it like, yeah, I just lost a battle to this wordy guy, this smart guy, this guy with all these ideas. But at the end of the day, y'all are going to be stuck with me, because the philosophy of the song is there's only one Kendrick. History shows us that Kendrick tends to go back up the mountain after releasing his music, doing his tour, doing his, like, what he does takes a lot of creativity and intention to do. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of vulnerability. It takes, like, that sort of output takes an incredible amount of one's life force to, like, do all of that, especially when you're sort of standing alone doing it. So it stands to reason, after this giant creative output of the last year, with the diss songs, with the album, with the Super Bowl, with the Grammys, with this giant tour that's about to happen, Kendrick's going to go back up the mountain. And when Kendrick is back up the mountain, we're left with the status quo. We're left with the Drakes, the Futures, the Young Thugs, the Nicki Minaj's. And I'm not, like, Drake aside, right? Because Drake morally and philosophically is just becoming more and more ass. And I'm not shitting on all of those people as artists. I think that there is value in a lot of what they do, but I think the idea that what Kendrick is doing is going to have some sort of, like, large pendulum swinging effect on the consumer culture of hip hop, because the consumer culture of hip hop is very much informed by the business of it. Like, I really wish we could separate those two, but I think any conversation about those two where they're separated is not a real conversation. Like, even Kendrick, right? Like, Kendrick had to get blessed by Dr. Dre to begin with. Luckily, TDE started and they were really smart about positioning. Drake took him on his first tour. UMG had to happen, working with Taylor Swift's producers, Interscope. Like, the creative artists in hip hop are not positioned in that place. Doechii is the closest. And I think the fact that there's a Doechii that we can look to in this is fantastic. But if you look at the vast majority of creative artists in hip hop, you look at the Quelle Chris's, you look at the Cavaliers, you look at the Fatboy Sharifs, you look at Samus, like, you look at these people who make brilliant shit, they are not often positioned to be given this glow in these platforms to have the sort of impact that a Kendrick has had. And I don't know what can happen to change that, except consumers turning away from the corporate informed choices, which hip hop has always been a challenge for hip hop, because the alignment has always been that the big corporate element sort of position who is at the top of hip hop. And that for a large swath of the consumer culture of hip hop, they go along with that choice. To some degree, they're invested with it because they may have seen an artist rise to that position and decide that that's what they like. And there's a very reflective machine of the culture of hip hop too, where the big corporate influence funds the image that the artist portrays, and that reflects back into the consumer culture of hip hop too. So there's a machine that happens there. And it's been historically difficult, historically a challenge for the consumers of hip hop to turn away from that and look for something else. If in mass, the consumers of hip hop culture looked somewhere else, it would fuck this whole thing up. It wouldn't work. If the corporate giants are investing all of this money in an artist that nobody's showing up for, then that whole thing breaks. But as long as all of that is in alignment, then that becomes a machine that continues to operate the way that it has. And I've been yapping for a while. Let's see what the comments are saying. Goo Master, I mean, this is the challenge for all independent artists everywhere. This is artists fighting commodification of art itself. Only so much can be or will be officially captured by capital and pushed out in mass for consumption by the powers that be. Yeah, this is the challenge. I mean, one of the reasons I thought Kendrick's performance in the Super Bowl was so great, because to me, part of it seemed like just the act of him doing it was a sort of rebellion in itself, and not a grand cultural rebellion, but a rebellion of who is allowed to be in those spaces. and a sort of questioning of why is it always the same people? And then what happens when somebody different has it? Because those are the questions that we don't get to ask. So those are the answers that we never get to see play out. But in this case, we did. We saw something different. FD Signifier said Drake is the new Eminem in this sense because people used to say, I don't like hip hop, but I like Eminem. Now that's Drake. I don't know. I don't know. I think that when people said that thing about I don't like hip hop, but I like Eminem, I think that was really about race. I think that was really about people finding an accessibility in Eminem because a lot of the people who said that were white people. So for them, it was opening a door to enjoying a hip hop artist because he looked like them. It didn't seem like it was another world. It felt like somebody closer to home. So I don't know if that translates to Drake, but FD is a real smart guy. So maybe I don't completely understand the angle there. In a lot of ways, I feel like how corporate giants treat hip hop is they purposefully glorify destructive motifs to keep the populace destroying itself. I know a lot of people feel that way too. And I think the problem with me and that sentiment is that I remember when it wasn't like that. And I remember people having a choice. And a lot of times people chose the destruction. Like you had a tribe next to an Ice Cube, and Ice Cube's not the best, but then that era is not the best to discuss these contrasts as archetypal. But I say that to say you had artists who were creative, positive, culturally unifying. You had artists who were very individualized, violent, like with a darker energy. And in a lot of instances, consumers chose the darker shit. Now, I think that sort of underpins like a capitalistic streak that kind of runs through all of us, where it's like it's easier to choose that because that's in alignment with the world we see. Whereas like the positive, the creative seems like work almost. Like that's the whole thing about escapism, right? Like you don't want to necessarily think about the work that needs to be done because that's not enjoyable. And life is so fucking hard that people didn't want to hear that in the club, for instance. And the club was where a lot of these choices are made. I think the answer, especially in 2025, the answer is to do your own thing, because now more than ever, you can really build your own fan base with people fucking with what you do. If you stand out, I think if you want to go through the corporate machine, then yeah, you need to be aiming in that direction. If your end goal is mass appeal. So I guess it just depends on what your end goal is. Like and subscribe, homie, friend. It's free. Stop playing.